Recently, there's been another case where a very fine stand-up comic was performing in Bombay, and I'm sure he thought he was doing something that was not against the law. He's quite upstanding as well. But law strikes in strange ways. Law comes in, disturbs you in strange ways, and that is, I think, the reason to fear the law, because it's uncertain, because you don't know how it will come to hit you. And why is it uncertain? One of the basic functions of law is to ascribe meanings to everyday actions. And law classifies things for us. It organizes our cognitive abilities in particular ways. It tells us what is good, what is bad, and what is good violence, and what is bad violence. And there's this example of the offense of kidnapping or abduction, for instance. We all know that it is illegal to confine a person against their wishes and coerce them to do something. If you do that, you will get arrested, you'll be tried for it. But on the other hand, if the police does that to a person, if the police detains a person only in order to coerce them to make a confession or to give a statement, then they're well within the law. So even detention in order to coerce can be good violence, it can be bad violence. And law organizes that kind of classification for us. Look at capital punishment, acceptable if not good violence. So there is always that uncertainty, and also there's always that inequity in law. The state always has much more power, even within law. Good violence is always associated with the state, and bad violence is always associated with people, especially people who challenge the state's authority. That's always bad violence. The state gets away with a lot, but we let it get away with a lot because we think that the state is doing it for public interest, and it's neutral in the way that it functions. And we think that the state has noble intentions. But what happens if the state's actions are not neutral, they're not impartial? What happens when it's more favorable to certain people or certain communities or certain classes than it is to others? That's something to think about. The second is that I think people fear the law even more when there is more uncertainty in terms of the interpretations of law, especially interpretations of criminal law. And that's because the meanings are constantly shifting. I also noticed that the last time you were in trouble with the law, or maybe that wasn't the last time, maybe you've been in trouble since, you used to bring out the Constitution each time. And you used to say that the Constitution gives me the right to say what I will. And I always thought that, if you have to bring out the Constitution to defend a very normal act of public speech or satire or making fun, then our threshold is also already very low. It's almost like, going to a shop and saying, please give me something because I'm a Muslim, but I have the right to buy from any shop. Here's the Constitution. So to be invoking the Constitution at the drop of a hat is already the threshold being very, very low. And this wasn't the case. But so it means that meanings are shifting. There are more kinds of violence, there are more kinds of speech acts that are suddenly now being classified as illegal, as criminal.
So basically, like for an artist or any comedian and stuff like that, when we started doing comedy in 2012, 13, 15, 14, it was like, okay, there'll be multiple cases against you. You'll not be able to deal with it. You don't have the money to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, avoid these things. Don't talk about these subjects or don't be provocative. Then came 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
Then it was like, we'll beat you up, we'll ransack your venue, we will make sure that there are enough threats, you won't be able to travel. And that made me as a comedian realize court case is not a bad thing if mob violence is the other option. And that's when I started thinking that, who are my friends whose lawyering I like and who like my comedy?
Yeah.
Can we work together? And I had to bring about that alliance because I realized that the more we fear courts while
Yeah.
we are upstanding
Mhm.
and we are without any malice. Bias may be there, malice is not there.
Mhm.
Why should we take a step back? And that's when I started looking at the constitution more as a freedom manual than as a
Absolutely.
rule book.
But I'm not saying that you shouldn't invoke the Constitution. I'm making, yeah, I'm just commenting that,
No, I'm absolutely, you're right.
that, the need to invoke it
Yeah,
at every corner is already a
absolutely.
lowering of the threshold. But I appreciate what you're saying, and I think two things have happened here. There are two shifts that have happened. More speech has now been classified as bad speech,
Yeah.
right? More speech has now been classified as illegal speech. And then correspondingly, as a mirror image, more actions, more reactionary violence has been classified as acceptable violence. And both things have happened together. So you'll find that you'll have less of a case in court, or other people will be able to go to court more easily against you to prosecute your speech. That's one part. And the second is this mob violence has also become more acceptable. So this cognitive reorganization has happened right before your eyes. There was good speech, bad violence, and now that bad violence is acceptable violence and good speech is illegal speech. What are the other shifts? The other shifts I see is this broadening of the category of national security. Anything goes. So suddenly speech can be a problem to national security. And then that means that it becomes illegal immediately. Again, in your example, I think political figures came to embody the state itself. So if you're making fun of political figures, it was seen as making fun of the state. So political figures embodying the state is again a new phenomena. That's again a new shift. That wasn't the case earlier. It shouldn't be the case.